What we've got here is Fake Rock City, a little town for your pet lizard or tarantula to attack. Now, it might look impractical and ridiculous, but I will try to show that it actually incorporates every practical necessity that you would want in a piece of cage furniture for your pet. It's not too tall as to create a hazard for a lizard to fall. It's got 2 working basking spots, provides exercise, and it also has a hide underneath. So you got the little theater there, which of course shows Big Dexter 24/7. If you haven't seen Big Dexter, it's a short film on lizardlandscapes.com about a 14-foot bearded dragon. So check that out, just as free as the video you're watching now. So, got a little graffiti there, so a bit of a bad element has moved in perhaps. But you got the easy ascending staircase up to a potential basking spot. And then you've got another potential basking spot over there. So, and then underneath the far, row of buildings, it's actually hollow, so it provides a hide for a lizard or tarantula to de-stress. And this will be a corner unit, so this will be flush up against the glass or masonite or wood. You've got about 3 3/4 pounds, almost 4 pounds of weight that it's holding without a support beam. But if it's going to be in a corner unit cage, that glass or wood will supply even more support for the fake rock structure to rest up against. But you can always use Velcro to add some more support. Ended up using a lot of leftover pieces from previous projects using Loctite Power Grab. It's a product similar to Liquid Nails. What I did was measure out how long, how deep, and how tall I wanted the structure to be for the cage it was going to go in. So those are really the only measurements I use when starting one of these. I'm trying to build a little ridge here that's about 4 inches tall. Little ridge that ends up outlining the street of the little city. I'm actually going to cut that out. You could leave this in. So I'm going to cut out that base and actually glue it to this top ridge, which is what the buildings in the far back will actually sit on. That's how you make that hide hollow. So what I'm doing here is creating one of the buildings, and really when you think about it, this project is basically a bunch of rectangles and squares. So good project, good simple project for the kids or the kid at heart to build a little fake city. Plus I think every lizard's got a little bit of a Godzilla complex going. They need a little city to attack, get their aggressions and rage out. So anyway, just continuing to these buildings, I'm building them in sort of a hollow style, just doing the outline of them. So they actually end up being hollow. The rest of the buildings, except for one, I just glued together a whole bunch of rectangles and squares of the same size and just put it on that top, or I guess back section against that ridge. So you can see here, just I had cut out 4 or 5 pieces of the exact same size, and going to glue those down as one of the buildings that's in that back. And then we've got the theater, just to show you again a different way of building that. This will obviously be hollow. Put a little top to it there. And for some of the buildings, I've got a little thin piece of styrofoam, actually packing material, where you can have some of the buildings protruding out or jutting out from the others just to add a little bit more detail. The more detail you can add, usually the better it's going to look. So there we've got the finished polystyrene sculpt ready for the grouting process. I've got white non-sanded grout using Polyblend, and it's really just a process of using grout and then adding water and then a little bit more grout to get it to the consistency that you want. Your first layer should not be watery. It should be more of like a thin pancake batter. So I've got one layer on the top part there. I'm going to turn it over, so be sure and turn it upside down and get absolutely every single square inch. So putting the second layer on, it's an optional stage where you put in a little bit of color, whether it be cement color mix or acrylic paint, just so you can tell where you left off if you get called away from it. So you'll want to put at least 3 layers of grout on. It strengthens the structure, gives it that look. I'm going to put a third layer on here. So here I am mixing up a thick batch of grout, so very little water, trying to reestablish some detail. When you put those 3 layers of grout, 3 or 4 layers of grout on, you'll find you end up losing quite a bit of detail in the straight edges or any other type of detail for that matter. And with some very fine grade sandpaper, I'm going to go over some of it to get rid of the sharp parts or weak parts and brush away the loose dust that was created by the layers of grout. And the fun part is putting in all that detail just using some cheap acrylic paint, and ended up using a little sponge to create some windows. So a different way of putting in some fine detail. But the more windows and doors and window sills and anything else as far as detail you can put in, the more it's going to look like a little city. Just putting in the road here. But be sure and put in some text as to what the buildings are. Alright, we got the stage of having to seal it with a non-toxic sealer using an acrylic sealant called Shields-All. There is a link on my website if you go to the facts section where you can find out how to get Shields-All, an acrylic sealer. It's not the only sealant, but using it on this project. Put 4 layers of sealer on there, and the last layer I'm going to sprinkle some fine grade sand as a way of applying some traction and strength to the overall project. And you're done!